Good morning. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. I'm Barry Bryson, and we're continuing our study of the Gospel of Matthew, and we're in chapter 9, verses 14 through 17 today. It's an interesting episode because Jesus is questioned by the apostles of John the Baptist. The disciples of John came to him saying, "Why do we and the Pharisees fast, but your disciples do not fast?" And Jesus said to them, "Can the wedding guests mourn as long as the bridegroom is with them? The days will come when the bridegroom is taken away from them, and then they will fast. No one puts a piece of unshrunk cloth on an old garment, for the patch tears away from the garment, and a worse tear is made. Neither is new wine put in old wineskins. If it is, the skins burst, and the wine is spilled, and the skins and the wine are destroyed. But new wine is put into fresh wineskins, and so both are preserved." I love this passage for a lot of reasons. One is it really communicates to us the overlap, which was a fairly significant overlap between the ministries of John the Baptist and Jesus. John the Baptist is still doing his work of preparing the way for the Lord, and so it must have been a really exciting time in Galilee at this time to have both men traveling. Jesus traveling around, John there by the Jordan River, doing their work. I've always assumed that these guys asked John the Baptist first, and he said, "If you want to know, go ask Jesus," because we already have the snapshots, the videotape of John pointing his own disciples towards Jesus in the first couple of chapters of John's Gospel, John the Apostle's Gospel, first chapter. "Behold the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world." He sends Andrew and Philip to follow Jesus at that time. And so I'm assuming that they asked John the Baptist first, and he said, "Well, why don't you go ask Jesus?" And I want us to notice how Jesus answers them. So we have three stories right in a row where Jesus is questioned about his reasons for doing things. We have the scribes who question him about his claim that he can forgive sins. The Pharisees questioning, which they do internally. They just think it, but Jesus knows they're thinking it. And then we have the Pharisees who want to know why he's hanging out with sinners and tax collectors. But they don't ask Jesus directly. They ask the disciples, and Jesus answers them. And then we have John the Baptist's disciples who come straight to Jesus and asks their question. And it's a legit question. And it allows Jesus to identify himself as the Messiah in ways that they would have understood. We may not get it yet as just readers of this gospel, if this is all we had, but they would have understood what he was saying. He's saying, as he said to the woman at the well, "I am he," in giving this answer. And he calls himself the bridegroom, and he says the wedding guests, the wedding guests cannot they cannot mourn as long as the bridegroom is with them. The bridegroom will be taken away, and then they'll fast. "I am the bridegroom. I'm the one. I'm the one that everyone's waiting for, and I'm here." And so fasting now would be inappropriate. Fasting, it makes us think about fasting and the role of fasting. Fasting being something that we do to show our love and devotion to God. Jesus has already talked about fasting in Matthew chapter 6. And he has expressed his expectation that we will fast. But it's something that we do because something that we're waiting for to happen hasn't happened yet. And when the thing happens, then there's no need to fast anymore. One day, when we are called home to heaven, then there will be no need to fast anymore. I mean, that won't be necessary. We'll still pray and sing, and adore God and worship him, but fasting will not be on the day's events or the week's events, because it won't be appropriate at that time. And then and using not only just the simple logic, irrefutable logic, in using the verse that means everything, which he's already done. He shows us how he uses the homespun wisdom that makes sense to everybody. That if you wash, wool or cotton, it'll shrink. It just will. It will shrink. And if you try to patch an old garment with a new piece of unshrunk cloth, it's just going to pull away and make the tear worse. If you put new wine, which is still fermenting, in old hard wineskins, you're going to lose your wine and your wineskins. You have to do something that's appropriate to the time. And that's the answer he gives them. And we don't have anything else recorded about this encounter, so I'm assuming it was a satisfying answer. And they went back informed. Okay, next time we'll talk about the healing of the woman with the hemorrhage and the raising of Jairus' daughter. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word.